Jeep. I got 4 new ball joints, 2 new hub wheel bearing assemblies. I know one of them is bad. I have 2 bad ball joints and 1 bad bearing. Might as well just replace all the ball joints and both bearings, and then I'll save the 1 good bearing for a spare later. New radiator. 4 new tires already mounted. Brand new. Those came today, so I went ahead and mounted them. Got my old bald ones off of there. I had one of them had a plug the size of your finger right here in the sidewall. So we'll go ahead and start getting this tore down. Ball joints out, hub bearings off. Get this radiator in later, probably tomorrow. We're gonna try and get at least one side done tonight. There's my ball joint press over there on the toolbox. Drag it out. We'll go ahead and get busy. Alright, first thing you want to do is get a screwdriver or something inside this caliper right here. You want to squeeze it in a little bit, okay? And then there's 2 10mm bolts. We'll go ahead and take those out and we'll get this caliper hung up out of the way. Alright, we got the caliper off, we got it hung up. What works good for hanging these up are them hooks off of bungee cords. You just hang it in a hole in the frame. This thing here comes right off. Okay, then we're going to need a 12-point, either 1/2 inch or 13mm for these bolts right here I'm pointing at. There's 3 of them. And we'll go ahead and get those, and we'll get this cotter pin and this big nut out next. Alright, got the big nut loose. Got all the 3 holding them on, which are the long ones. They're 12-point. Just grab onto it because I got it hot, obviously, with the torch to get those big nuts loose. And you just tap it with a hammer, and this thing will... Let's see it. There's that. Lay that down there. I'm sure this axle is going to be too hot to touch right now, but we'll go ahead and straighten this up a little bit. Pull that axle out. Yeah, that's too hot to touch. I grab a glove. Got a glove. Just pull this out. This will be the long one, by the way. And this will be the time, if you've got a bad U-joint. These are actually in pretty good shape. They're still shiny, actually, like they've been replaced. They're not loose. You don't want them to have any kind of up and down or side to side or any kind of stickiness. Okay, if they're sticky, replace them. So now, we'll get this nut off, cotter pin, this nut, and this cotter pin in here. And then it's just a matter of knocking that knuckle loose, and then we can get our ball joints out. Alright, I got both bolts for the ball joints loose. Actually, this top one's off. The bottom one is halfway off because I don't want this to just fall on the ground. And it's that simple. Now we get to our ball joints. I'm going to put a jack stand under this because I don't want to put a lot of undue stress on this shot. We'll get a jack stand under that. We'll be back. Alright, we got our ball joint removal set up here. It's kind of a hard crank out. We're going to go ahead. Oh, man. joint number 1. Go ahead and get this other one squeaked out. We'll, I don't know if you can see from this step or not. Nope. But I don't have the master ball joint set. This is just the basic, so you got to kind of, you know, configure what you're gonna, how you're gonna push it out and all this other stuff. So we'll want to take the top one out first because you want to use the rod to push, and it's right here. This is how you're going to do your next one. Okay, it goes through the top. Then you put your coupler on your piece on the bottom, and then we'll get that one out. That one was stuck. I can put a little bit of heat. This right here, what you do is put a lot of pressure on it with your ball joint press, and then just start slowly warming that up. You'll know when you've got it warm enough that that ball joint's going to go bang real loud. Then all we got to do is clean this up. I'll put some black spray paint on this knuckle, make it nice and pretty, and then we'll get it put together. Alright, that's how we're going to push the ball joint back in. The ball joint is going to fall inside of this little cup here, and this grabs just that outer ring and smushes it back up in there. And we'll go ahead and show you how that goes back together. My impact. Tap everything center. Should go together pretty easy. There's that ball joint in. Just that simple. Do the top one the same way, and then this one here, if I remember right, you have to grease it before you put it together, or you have to put the spindle on it, put your grease zerk in it, grease it, take the grease zerk back out, plug it, and then put the axle in, because if I remember right, the U-joints hit this one if it's sticking up. So I have to see, I'll put an elbow on it and see how close it gets. But moving on to the next part. Now that we have our ball joints in, bolted up, you put a grease zerk in this one, fill it full of grease, pack it full of grease. Just pump it until it oozes out. You take the grease zerk out and you have to plug that, because the propeller shaft will hit or the front axle U-joints will hit that grease zerk sticking up. So we plug that, got that full of grease. Now we're going to go ahead and get our axles back in and get ready to put our wheel bearings on. Okay, we got the wheel bearing bolts tight. We got this nut tight. Before we're going to go any farther, now that we've got this snugged up, I want to make sure that the U-joints do not hit the grease zerk plug that we put in, and it's going to be right there. You can see it, and it clears it by quite a bit, so we're good. Now we'll go on to the brake rotor and the brakes. But we're going to have to take this back off. Oops, I zoomed in on you because I forgot the backing plate. So we're going to have to pull this back off real quick and put the backing plate on. Now we got the backing plate on, the bearing, the 12-point 13mm bolts that hold the bearing on tight. We got the nut on, it holds the axle in tight. We've checked the clearance of that lower ball joint plug where the grease zerk went. Make sure that doesn't hit. Now we're going to put this little wafer gasket or wafer washer on. Then we're going to put our big washer on, but we got to find out where our hole is first. It's right there. All right. Put our hole on top. Put our wafer washer on. What this wafer washer does is when you put this thing on, it keeps outward pressure on it to keep it from rattling when you go down the road. You know, if you hit a bump, there's something rattle like a rock in the hubcap. And that's what that's for. Then we'll put our cotter pin in down there on the floor, and we'll get the rotors and the brakes on. All right, we got her all together. We're gonna go ahead and get some anti-seize on the studs. We'll get the rest of the front end greased again, and then we will put tires and wheels on. All right, so everything on there. We're gonna take it for a quick ride, then we're gonna pull that old calcium filled radiator out and swap that out with the old. You see all the calcium in this radiator, all that white stuff that insulates the copper from the antifreeze and doesn't let it cool off properly. And when you have this oxidation on the cooling fins, same thing there. It won't let the heat get pulled out of the liquid. We'll go ahead and get this new one stuck in. It's kind of a pain in the neck to change this with the core support on the car. I kind of wish I would have had this radiator before I put this front end together, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Alright, we went ahead and put our riv nuts in our new radiator for the fan shroud, and then we're gonna go ahead and get this thing stuck in there. Just like it belongs in there. Go and get me, I'm gonna get a flush tee, put in the heater hose and flush this thing out, or get some antifreeze in it.